Okay, so today we're starting to look at how to shade or put value to the things that we've drawn. So we're going to start here with the simple ones. And what I like to do is, as you can see this line right here, I put little lines in here, this line, probably going to use this line over here. Those are going to be my core shadows. And that's going to be the darkest part, if you remember, with your circle and on the cylinder. So the darkest part's the core shadow, and then as we go down from the core shadow, it's going to be darker, but not as dark as the core shadow. And then we have just the mid-tones going up to here. And then I'm actually probably, as I look at this, I kind of maybe want the core shadow to kind of be more right here, kind of halfway. Because then up here, that's going to be kind of like the top. That's going to catch the most light. Okay, so then the next thing we need to think about is, where's the light source going to be? And I usually like to do it from the top. And I'm going to do a few of these with some different light sources. But for this one, we're going to have the light source coming from the top. And you can kind of make it off to the side a little, or the top. But for this one, it'll work perfectly to just make the light source come from the top. So that's what I'm going to do on this one. And lots of times, it's easier to base your light source on the shape, because some shapes look better with a light source off to the right or to the left. Some sources look better, or some forms look better with the light source coming from the top. And that's what I think is going to look best for this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my B pencil. I've drawn these with my H, and I'm just going to lightly shade this. Oh, it's so awkward for me to do it and not turn it, so I'm just going to have to turn it a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of do a light value in here, kind of go right up to the line a little bit. Kind of doing hatching a little bit. And these, these you can kind of use a titch of hatching if you want, but you need to make it really nice. This is actually more tonal. So I just want you to do nice shading like you did on the other things that we put value to. Whatever technique it is that you use. But sometimes I think it looks really nice and uniform if my shading lines kind of go in the same direction. So that's what I'm doing here. And so remember how I said I was going to make this line be my core shadow. So you're just going to kind of do, this is going to be the darkest half. So then I might want to go over it maybe one more time. Maybe a little darker. And the reason why we did these with all these contour lines is because that's a good way for you to learn where to place the shadows, because they're really going to help you decide where your values go. And obviously as you practice more and you do more artwork, you know you won't need these, but they're a good way to learn and visually see things. They were a good way for me to start learning how to do this. Okay, so now I'm going to go in and actually I'm going to make this a little darker. Now I'm going to go in and kind of start putting in my core shadow. So then it's going to get lighter as it goes up to the top, but I'll worry about that in a minute. And as you start to do your core shadow, you can keep going over. Okay, let me explain something I forgot to kind of do at the beginning. Okay, so with that light source, like I said, being at the top, obviously your top is going to be the lightest. Your core shadow will be the darkest, but then of course this underside is going to be darker than up here. And my lines are of course determined where each of the shadows are going to go, and then probably down here we're going to have some reflected light. So I'm going to just kind of darken this area a little. Then I'm going to start kind of leaving a little area down there that's kind of lighter. That's going to be my reflected light from the surface that it's sitting on. So well, this will take kind of a minute or two to get your you've all done this with the core shadow, kind of getting it to where it needs to be. And of course at the end you can always use your little shading nubs and use those if you want. Okay, so now I'm just gonna slowly, you can go as dark with this as you want or as light as you want. Just for our purposes, I'm just showing you kind of how it would work. I'm gonna blend this a little. It's okay if these aren't blended perfectly, but I still want them to look pretty nice. Because these are really kind of practice for this assignment and what we're gonna do at the end. So these are practices to kind of get you. And as I'm looking, I still could go a lot darker down there, so I'm gonna do that in a minute. So I'm still using my B pencil. Okay, so that's kind of as dark as I want to go with my B pencil. So now I'm going to grab my 2B pencil, and I'm just going to kind of go over things again, and I'm going to gradually kind of get things a bit darker. And I'm not going to spend time getting really dark. I just want everyone to kind of get the idea of shading. And then when we do our real ones, like I said, you can get a lot darker because we of course want contrast is really good for a drawing. And I'm just kind of following the shape of that coarse shadow. It's kind of thicker in the middle and tapers off, just like this. It kind of sticks up more in the middle and then tapers off. As you can see, it starts to kind of look a little more three-dimensional. And I know that's where my highlight's gonna be. So now I'm actually just gonna kind of fill it all in with some value, really lightly. Down here obviously needs to be a bit darker. Then you can go in with your 4B and it'll go even darker for you. And I really like to work in layers because then it doesn't go so fast that I can't, you know, control what's happening. But see, now I'm starting to get it where I want it. So I can be a little more, I can push a little harder. See, I've left kind of this light area down here. That's going to be my reflected light, like if it was sitting on a countertop or, you know, whatever it's sitting on. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of take my eraser just kind of erase out a little bit of a highlight, and you can kind of go back through and blend that a little so it's not such a hard edge. So now this is, you know, this would be kind of the end result, and then, you know, if I had a shadow, it would be kind of like this. And of course our shadow, and I'm just going to do it 4B. Of course our shadow is going to be a lot darker than our actual ball or shape itself. So remember, and I like to kind of make it dark because remember the shadow is darkest right up against the edge, and I'm just going to kind of fan out my shadow a little. Not taking a lot of time on this so we can move on, but so anyway, that's kind of how that works. So pretty simple. We've done that with the ball. Okay, so I'm going to kind of do something now with, let's see, I'm going to use this one right here. So I'm going to do this one differently because I kind of feel like it lends a little bit better to a side light source. So, well, actually, no, I'll go ahead and do it with a top light source. This one, I'll do it the top light source. And so let's do this one with the side light source. Okay, so this is my drawing right here. I'm gonna put one more thing up here so I can kind of, and this will kind of denotes kind of the top of my drawing. I like to put that there. Okay, so I'm trying to decide kind of where I want my core shadow to be. I'll probably make this one right here be my core shadow. So I'm gonna straighten this one out a little as it goes down. A little more straight, just so it follows the edge of this. Okay, So the next, I'm going to grab my B pencil, and this is going to be my core shadow, and then we're going to kind of go kind of up into this area, and this side's going to be light. So my light source is over here, and remember, it's going to, oh, then I need to put my light source on the other side. I forgot, that's the side we're making dark. So my light source is coming this way. So all my light is moving in that direction. So that's going to be my light side. This is going to be my dark side. So I'm just going to do the same thing that I did with this one. And I know it's going to be pretty dark like the last one. So they get it fairly dark. Once again, I used my contour lines to kind of help me decide where things go. And it's okay because you used your H pencils to draw these because I just wanted them to be light. And as you can see, you'll kind of see these lines through it. And that's okay because these are just practice. So don't worry about those. Don't keep trying to go darker to get these lines out because they're not going to go out. So don't worry about those now. So now I'm going to go ahead and going to start making my core shadow. And you don't need to spend hours on this shading. You can see how long I'm spending. I'm not spending but maybe 8 minutes or so on these. When you do your final drawings, which will be our next step, then that's where I want you to spend the most time. But this is just an exercise to make sure you understand and can learn where the values go. So now I'm just making that transitional shadow. I'm going to kind of blend it. I'm going to kind of go all the way up here. Maybe I'll use this line as my stopping point, kind of for where the light source is going to be really bright. Okay, so I have my core shadow and stuff in there. So now I'm going to move to my 2B pencil. Like I said, I like to move kind of slowly and build up the values because then I won't make as many mistakes and then it's easier to fix them. If I go too dark, too fast, it's hard to erase it. Once again, don't worry about these lines where your H pencil was. It's a good example to show you why you won't want to actually use those when you got to do some shading. So now I'm going to take my 4B pencil, which is going to allow me to go quite a bit darker. But I'm still kind of trying to leave a little edge right there. where some reflected light would be. Okay, so have that one done. I think let's make this core shadow. Make the core shadow just a little bit darker. Okay, so my light source is here, so I'm gonna make it have a little shadow. And it's gonna kind of go into my other one, but I'll just kind of do a quick one so you guys can kind of see. And it would kind of go off in the same shape as that. Okay, so we've done that. All right, let's do another one. So I'm gonna do this one right now. And we're gonna make the light source be from the top again. So our light source is gonna come from this way. Now, just to explain how this is gonna happen, it's gonna hit a lot of sun or light or whatever is gonna be right here in the top. Then as it goes down, so it's gonna hit that the most, and then it might hit a little bit because this is fatter and wider, and it sticks out further than down here. So it'll probably hit this a little bit, but not tons. Down in here is gonna be the darkest because it's kind of poked back the most. And then this will also not hit the sun very much at all. So I'll kind of show you. So you have to think as you're doing this, what edges stick out the most and how they will catch the sunlight. So I'm gonna take my B pencil and it's gonna be different kind of now where my core shadows are gonna be. Because now I have to think of this. I'm gonna think of this as a ball. And then we'll work our way down. Then I'm just gonna kind of think of this as a separate thing, and this here is also another ball. So think of it in 3 shapes. 1, 2, and 3. So this is gonna be a little different because the light source is coming from the top, and over here the light source was coming from the side. So take my B pencil and I'm gonna shade everything where it's not gonna have, so I'm not gonna shade the top part where the light's gonna be. But I start with the lightest layers first, and I know all of this is at least gonna have this light tone. So it's okay for me to go ahead and do the whole thing. And I know they're all gonna be a little bit darker than that. So I'm gonna go even a little darker than that. I kind of have to eyeball it and make sure that I'm not going too dark too fast. So, and sometimes as you do shade these and they get more complex, you do have to think about, what was I gonna say? As they get more complex, you have to sometimes break them up into smaller shapes, just like how you've drawn them. Okay, so now I have kind of the basic shape. I'm gonna actually go up over this, just to kind of make it smooth, because nothing's gonna have a hard edge. So we'll just go up above this a little bit, soften it out. Okay, so that's my lightest area. Up there, I'm gonna just put one more ring. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is, I'm trying to decide if I want this to, so I'm gonna make this right here be my core shadow. Because it looks like the meatiest part of the design. So your core shadow is always gonna be like in the meatiest part of the design when it's curved. So and we kept these contour lines in there because you got to make sure that, see how we're going? You don't necessarily have to shade in a circle like this, but your values are gonna have to follow. So that's important. That's why I had us put these in. Like I said, they're not always gonna be used when you get used to drawing. But when you're doing stuff without a reference and you're first learning, it's really helpful. I still use these. And I do a mock-up of it, and then I go to my regular drawing and I'm able to do it. But if it's real surrealistic or abstract, it's hard for me to just sit and imagine exactly where the values go. Okay, so now down here, that's gonna stay lighter. Now down here, because this is under here, and I'm gonna go past this line a little bit just to blend in. But this was one of the most helpful things that I kind of did some research on and had to figure out myself several years ago because I wasn't taught this. And it's been really helpful. So hopefully it's helpful to you all. Especially, this is really helpful when you don't have a reference. Okay, so this is my second part of the ball, and I'm gonna make this be my core shadow. So I'm gonna do the two areas that are kind of like the shape of a ball first. And then in here, I know that this right in here, right where it curves, and it like indents the most, it's like a waist, I guess. I'm gonna make it be the actual darkest area. Okay, so now I'm going to take my 2B. I'm going to go through here again. I'll darken my core shadow. This is going to be a little more gradual through here. Kind of blend up into here. Just going to kind of make the sides in there a little darker. I'm going to make it a little darker, kind of where it pinches in. Right there, because these are really overlapping or way out. So they're not going to let any sunlight into these corners. And this is going to be darker than this part. So I'm going to go over it again. I'm going to probably have to put the coarse shadow back in. This is going to be the darkest part. Because once again, the sun is hitting that and it's not really getting down there at all. Then go back and put my little coarse shadow in. And then I'm going to take this, I've left that up there, and I'm just going to kind of, actually I'm going to take my, just kind of do that. Okay, so now for this shadow, because the light source is coming down, it would either, depending on the time of the day, all you'd see is something right there, or, you know, it would come out. But there's that one. Okay, so let's do, I think that one's self-explanatory. Let's do, here's one I have done already. This one I've actually gone through and used the shading nubs. What you can do, and then I felt like outlining it. Sometimes I like that look, like how they outline tattoos. They're almost always outlined. That's kind of what I did there. So let's go ahead and do some of these. And it's kind of becoming self-explanatory how these work. So I'm going to do these ball ones, like little things sitting on top of each other. So here's my coarse shadow, and my coarse shadow, and I'm going to make my light source up here. So obviously these top parts are what's going to be my lightest part, except for I'll show you that's going to have a little bit of a shadow that goes over it. So I'm going to take my B pencil. I'm going to do the same thing. I go over. Oh, I'm not going to worry about going over it. I'm going to put something in there. So I've got my basic shadow in. Going to go to the next one. Do the same thing. Then I'm going to go up to this third ball. I actually want my coarse shadow more. I want my coarse shadow more up there. So. Okay, so I kind of have where my coarse shadows are. Or my bottom shadow. Now I'm going to put in my coarse shadows. And as it kind of starts to hit the middle, they almost straighten out. So if you get to that point, which should be fine, your core shadow, because mine's going to kind of get right up to there, and it's going to kind of straighten out. Because at the most bulbous point, stuff's going to look straight. So keep that in mind. Now I'm just going to go up here. Blend that. Ooh, this one's full of H pencil lines. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the next one. I actually want to make these a little darker. Putting in my core shadow right now. Most of these core shadows on this shape are kind of almost going straight across. And then let's do our last one up here. I'm going to do the core shadow now. Okay, these need to be darker, so I'm going to go in with my 2B. Going to really darken these a lot more. And my transitions are definitely not smooth like I want them, but just for kind of a demo. And that's what I'm doing. As long as you kind of get the idea. Okay, so now we kind of have it done, basically, but what's going to happen now is, because these are kind of on top of these, they're going to kind of have a little bit of stuff that pops out, just a little, because they curve under. So you're going to kind of have a little bit going to be thicker in the middle because that's kind of the shape of your thing. So you're going to kind of have that little bit of a shadow where the shape kind of pops out. Okay, All right, so let's do, trying to think of one that we can do. Let's see. I think I'm going to hold off on those. I think you kind of get the idea, you know, with these different shapes. I've done this one. I'll have a photo of that one. There's that one. So you can kind of see we're still kind of in the simplistic mode of the shapes, but I kind of want you to understand those before we go any further. So I think I'm going to stop with those, and I'm going to work on this one. So this is our 3D, or our one-dimensional, one-point perspective. So I'm going to do that one. So I actually don't like this box, so I'm getting rid of it. Okay, so as you can kind of see here, I've started this one. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this one. So what I've done is my light source is up at the top. So you can kind of see it's hitting. I forgot to go back and do this. So what it's doing is it's hitting the tops of stuff. And it's going to hit kind of right in this curve. So it's still hitting the tops of things like this. It's going to hit the top here, the top here, the top here. And then we're going to have some shadows out here. So I'm going to just start with the 2B over here. And what I'm going to do is, this one I should actually probably make a little darker. But these shapes on this side, they're the furthest away from the light source. So they're going to be dark. This one's a little lighter, and then the top will be like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and color this side in. And I use the smears on this one because they were such, they're such large shapes. And on the other shapes, you're welcome to use your shaders if you would like. And because I'm going to smear this, and I know I'm going to, I'm not worried about making it, the strokes in here, perfect. Once again, you're going to have lines like H lines and stuff like that that are probably going to show through, but that's okay. Okay, so now go through and darken this. These aren't perfect. I just want you guys to kind of get the idea. Okay, so now we have this side. And now the next thing is we got to do this one. So I'm going to use my B pencil. And I'm going to try to keep it the same as these values because it's getting the same amount of the light source. And since it's a lighter color, I kind of got to be a little more careful with the lines in it. And I kind of like to go, my lines to kind of go towards the vanishing point. And I know I've talked about when we have lines, it's better to have implied lines. So I don't mind if your lines show on these geometric ones because we've outlined them. But the best way still to do these is to not have these outlines. But it's okay, these are just practice. Just something to think about. And I don't mind if I go over the edge a little. Now right as it starts to curve here, I'm going to do a gradual, it's going to go right up here to the edge, and I'm going to gradually kind of taper off. So it's just going to kind of roll over. And then, I don't know, I don't like things going over the edge, so then I'm just going to take my eraser. Okay, so now we have this, but this is obviously this thing, this shape is going to cast a shadow, and this one's also going to cast a shadow. So what's going to happen is this down here is going to cast a shadow, and so let's do this first. Let's make this big one cast a shadow, and then we'll do this one. So it's going to be dark again, so I'm going to use my 4B. And for the shadows, it works to just make them work right in with the vanishing point. So this one goes to the vanishing point. So what's essentially going to happen is this is all going to become one shadow. But since this one jets out further, it would actually come out to here. So I'm not worried about making these perfect. The rest I probably won't do as dark, but the first one, just so you can see, I'll do a little darker. As you can see, this shadow, I kind of made it a blurred edge. But when you go and do real life drawings, you can take a lot more time and do a better job. Then we have this one would come down, because you got to think of what the underneath shape of this thing is, which would be rectangle. So here, I'm not paying attention to this upper shape or the whole thing, because the shadow is a rectangle like that. And then it would fade into here too. So now, I'm gonna make that one a lot darker. Okay, done with that one. So let's go to the next one. So, well, maybe I want to do a more complicated. Let's just go ahead and do this one. So, I know that my darkest area is going to be right here and right here. This is going to be a medium value, and these are going to be my light values. But this one's going to catch light just a little differently. So let's do this one first because we know what it's going to be. So I'm just going to grab my B pencil. And you can afford to kind of go over the edge because it's light enough that you can go back and erase it. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and erase it. Like I said, if you'd like to speed up these videos to kind of get past them, that's okay. So I'm going to use my 2B pencil for this right here. This is going to be my darkest side. Well, it's like the cylinder. It's going to have a core shadow. So first I'm just gonna, I know it's all gonna be quite a dark color. Value, I should say. So I always get in the main value and then I'll go back, of course, and put in the core shadow. And then right as I round the corner, I'm going to gradually go into this color. All right, so now I'm going to put a core shadow in here. I use my 4B. then over here is going to be probably a little bit of some reflected light. Okay. I'm going to finish putting this color here. Actually, that one should be really dark, I forgot. This one's the medium tone. So then this one would actually be the darkest one. Since this one's the furthest away, it needs to be the darkest. I could spend much more time on these, making them look a lot nicer, but the video is already about an hour long, so I'm just kind of giving you the gist of this. Okay, so now let's do the top. And it's going to be the lightest, but in these areas, where's my B pencil? I'm going to take my B pencil, and then in these areas right here in the little crevice, it's still going to have a little bit of value. It's going to be really light though because it's kind of down in the bottom. And then down here, we're still going to have a little bit of value because it's down the side and it's not directly from the sun. Because our light source, again, I should have said, I'm going to make these all that way. It's kind of from the top. We're still going to kind of, once again, and I'm kind of following all my values are still funneling towards there. Okay, I'm going to go back over here and actually put some little highlights on that. Okay, same with these shadows. They would be right here, and then this one would follow this same shape, and it would be the same as that one. Not going to do any more of these. I think you kind of get the idea. Like I said, I think it's easiest to make the light source at the top, and then I can make my side walls, my medium value, the walls furthest away. So I guess the light source is kind of coming from the top and the back side a little bit, and that's why these remain dark. Is because the light source is coming from back and the top. So it's behind it a little bit. So that's what I think works the best. So let's get these done, and I'm gonna make some more videos over the next day or so about working with our more complex forms, because they take a little more process. So let's get these taken care of today, and I'll give us more videos for the others for Wednesday.